Good evening, and I welcome you to your transformative program, Politics and Beyond. As always, it is always a privilege to come your way just around this time because we get opportunity to discuss matters of interest, particularly that which interests you and I and the future of this country. And that is why I keep telling you that no matter what you do, make sure that 8 p.m. every Monday, you are stick with us because that is the only platform, or this is the only platform where we discuss matters of interest, national interest, topical issues, issues that is of benefit to you and I. Your host, Emmanuel Wilson Jr., the chief crusader against corruption here in Ghana. This evening, as it has always been very interactive, you are going to get opportunity to share your comments and share your views with us through the social media links that we have on the, will be exhibited on the screen. We are looking at the energy sector, and that is going to be the focus for this evening. We want to look at Ghana's energy sector. There are so many things happening across the country, not just this country, but across the globe. And when we talk of the globe, it really goes beyond Africa. And I believe the first thing that comes into your mind has to do with the Iran and then the Israel war. How is it going to have an impact on Ghana's energy sector? What needs to be done to ensure that there's stability as far as our energy sector is concerned? And not just stability, we are also consuming what is coming from that sector at a very reasonable price. This and many are the things we are going to discuss this evening. We're going to take a commercial break, and when we come back, I'm going to introduce to you our guests for this evening's episode. Stay tuned.
If a cry na menyisika, edia ye mefui.
Ehinfa pa na menya bosia, edia tre medwuma yimu.
Kai kra mabre, miye busia ato taxi fufu. Suhum Rural Bank.
Suhum Rural Bank.
Yema kwa baba Suhum Rural Bank. Ye won hyehyɛ ahodoɔ bi te sɛ dwadifo abosia, ekuokuro abosia, susu account, ɛne da so wɔ hɔ savings account, me bada chain savings account, ɛne de akeka ho. Press Suhum Rural Bank was 034229186. Na won so wetumi aka sɛ
Suhum Rural Bank. Ama ene mayeka owner.
Suhum Rural Bank, enti me pa minie.
Me damwase.
Suhum Rural Bank, growing our heritage.
The average human body mass should have at least 60% water for optimal performance in any physical or mental exercise. We can help you maintain it naturally. X Natural Mineral Water. Simply natural. For bulk purchase, call 0596 273 546 or 0596 273 547. This advert is FDA approved.
Welcome back. As I indicated, your regular host, Emmanuel Wilson Jr., the chief crusader against corruption here in Ghana. This evening, we are looking at the energy sector, and that is where our focus is because so many things are going on, and it is important we start giving attention to it. There has been numerous calls from a number of individuals complaining about how their supply of energy, in this case electricity, seems not to be stable, and every now and then there are individuals and communities complaining. I mean, I believe you've had similar complaints, or you've heard if you've not experienced it. And there are so many other things. Today, there's a worry as to whether or not there's going to be an increment in the fuel prices that we've been enjoying in this country. And there are so many other things that keeps coming up. So it is just prudent that we focus a bit more on the energy sector. We are privileged to have with us a very young man who is with the IES, and that is the Institute of Energy Securities. He is an economist, energy and finance analyst, and I'm making reference to Mr. Derek Emmanuel Hache. I believe I mentioned the name right.
You're correct. At IES, we are doing well. As we continue to do, we continue to shape policies. We continue to contribute to policy discussions as you're having me today.
Right.
It's one of our trademarks. Anytime we try to communicate with consumers for them to know what happens or what they should expect for every pricing window. When it gets to do with the power sector, we always come in handy. When it gets to do with the petroleum sector too, we always come in handy. So anything that is bordering energy, IES is always in the as a lead when it comes to the various CSOs in the energy sector, and then we always deliver competency because we are more professional, not to do any partisanship, but as and when it is where the need be, we just put it as such.
That's fine, Emmanuel. So the first and foremost, we've been talking about the energy sector, and that is where a lot of people keep talking about. Indeed, there are those that when they hear the energy sector, all they think about is petrol. When we make reference to energy sector, what are we talking about?
All right. So the energy sector is quite broad, but for Ghana's energy sector, we have the petroleum sector, and then we have the power sector. And so the petroleum sector, we are talking about the upstream, and so that's got to do with the exploration and the drilling of oil, the crude form, whatever that we get from it. We have some partners in it, whether it is the 10 field, the Sankofa field, or the Jinyame field. These are all oil fields that we continue to explore and then get production from. Other ones are still under exploration. We've not been able to discover it in larger quantities. Now we got to a point that then the major big players, that is how do you call it, the tallow oil and others, they were leaving the country because our terms and references were not something that were favorable to them as compared to our neighbors. So most of them were moving to Cote d'Ivoire and then other neighboring countries. For now, we are getting them back. And so when they come and then they invest that capital, then we are likely to have more oil production fields. For the past years, our oil production has been on a decline. And when it's on a decline, it affects the economy. And so we just hope that there will be the right investment. The macroeconomic indicators must be favorable to them, because if it is not favorable to them, they'll move to another alternative, that is another country. And so now that things seems to be stabilized, the exchange rate seems to be stabilized, there's a new change of government, and so when the government is more responsive to their needs, then they'll be able to have a better terms and references. Then they'll be able to invest or inject their capital, because the upstream, it is not small amount of money, and sometimes it's always a risky area for government to venture into. And so that is the petroleum sector. The power sector is what we always hear of it, because it got to do with ECG. And so anytime that we have lights out and cool, you say, oh, the energy sector, but that's just one leg of it. That's the power sector. But when you take the power sector, we have three major subsectors. We have those who generate the power, then we have those who transmit it, and then those who distribute it. Now, ECG is at the last end, that is the distribution. When it comes to the generation, we are talking about the VRA, which is the hydro component, and we also have the thermal component, that is the independent power producers. So you continue to hear of Asoglica Power and others. Those are the independent power producers. And so they help us to generate power. So if we take them, that is the hydro, the VRA and co, which is about 28% of our energy mix. And then you add the thermal, about 71% of our energy mix. The renewable is quite insignificant, below 2%. And so when you add them, these are the three major generating capacities that we have, both thermal, hydro, and the renewable. Now, when they generate the power, then now Gridco transmits the power to our various to ECG, and so Gridco does the transmission of power to ECG. Now, when ECG receives the power, what they do is that they now distribute it to the various players, and so it can come to your house, it can be to a company, it can be to an industry, or whichever capacity that they have. Those who request of it or those who need it, then ECG that does those distribution. Now, when ECG does the distribution, Now they receive the revenue for it. And so any power that you consume,
Yeah.
you pay for it. And when you pay for it, it goes to ECG. So ECG takes the money, and then this money is now used to pay those in the value chain. That is
Okay.
those who generated the power, and then those who transmitted it. And so anytime that ECG is not able to get the right amount of money that is commensurable with the power that has been distributed, then it means that there's a shortfall. And when that shortfall comes, then it means that you will not be able to pay those in the value chain. And so you continue to hear of legacy debts and other things. Exactly.
Yeah.
So those legacy debts emanated from ECG's inability to collect the needed revenue to be able to pay those in the value chain. And so the past government brought in a policy called the cash waterfall mechanism.
Right.
That was like a framework that you use to pay those who, let me say, the priority of priorities. And so they had those in the category A, they have those in the category B. And so anytime the ECG receives the money, there's a percentage that's supposed to go to those in category A. Those category A, majority of them are the IPPs. And so they are always the thermal component. And if you check, the thermal component is very huge. And so anytime that you don't pay those in the thermal sector or those who generate power through the thermal component, then it means that you are going to have an issue. And so this is what has been happening, but most times we continue to hear of issues in the power sector because ECG, which is a distributor, is not able to receive the needed revenue. And so when you give them, like, say, 100 megawatts of power to sell, trust you me, ECG can only account for 70%. That is just 70 megawatts. And so the 30 is just lost. And so that's what we call the distribution losses. And those distribution losses is from inefficiencies, those who bypass the system, and a whole lot of other things. And so it cripples ECG. And ECG is not able to crack the ship, go after them so that they'll be able to take the needed revenue. And so of late, I'm sure you've seen that ECG task force are going around various homes, workshops, industries, and co. Because a lot of people have bypassed the system. If they are able to sustain this policy, then you can be assured that for this month and then the subsequent month, their revenue collection will increase because all the things that have been all those that have been bypassing the system will try to regularize it. And when they do that, they will continue to have an increase in revenue generation. And when they have it, it means that those in the value chain that need to be paid, and for them to comply with the cash waterfall mechanism, they'll do it as soon as possible. And so that is always the hope that when these things are performed, nobody will hear of ECG, nobody will hear of power. Just do the right thing. And Ghanaians, what they are interested in is that give me power because I continue to pay. I don't understand why you pay for power and then you not get it. And if it happens that way, they always put the blame on government.
I wanted us to dwell a bit on the petroleum, but since we've gone into ECG, let's dwell on that a little more. I'm interested in the ECG's inability to generate the appropriate revenue from the consumers. Now, there's this school of thought that says that ECG should not be in debt simply because almost all of its clients uses what we call the prepaid. And so they are even giving them money before service is rendered. What accounts for that challenge?
Right. So it got to do with revenue mobilization. As I earlier stated, you are consuming through prepaid. And so you more or less like it's an advance payment to ECG. But there are a lot of people who bypass the prepaid. Now you ask about it, the prepaid, how many people are covered with it? Some people even want the meter. They don't even get access to it. Sometimes you have to pay back or do connection before you can even get access to prepaid. And if you look at it, change in lifestyle and co is increasing consumption of power. And the same as residential upsprings and co. So every now and then people are putting up buildings and co. They want meters. Now these meters are not readily available. And when they are not readily available, they go to ECG, they'll tell, okay, we are letting you pay a flat rate for a period of time. Wait for a period of time, we will now reconnect you. That reconnection never happened. Some people too, when they go one to and the ECG is not being responsive, then they just get a way to bypass the system because for all you know, they have their systems in place. They are willing to make payments, but for the inefficiencies of ECG, they continue to bypass the system. And then those who deliberately do it, and because when you're paying bills, nobody wants to pay bills. It is an increase in your cost of production. And so there are people that deliberately will want to bypass the system. And when they do that, it's a way to cut down their costs and then it becomes profit to them. But it is not their doing, it is ECG as to whether you'll be able to monitor very well. So what mechanisms do you put in place to be able to fish out those who would like to bypass the system? And so now, advancement in technology, You can just be at the comfort of your house and be able to monitor things.
Sure.
Now, people in one house, they have just one TV set, cameras maybe scattered across. They'll be able to monitor what is happening. And so, why can ECG do a similar thing?
Right.
Have a system that will be able to monitor, okay, for this enclave, I've given you, say, 2 megawatts of power. At the end of the day, I expect that I should raise, say, 1 million Ghana cedis. That is commensurable to, say, 1,000 megawatts of power. And so, if at the end of the day, I don't get the 1 million Ghana cedis, that is commensurable to, say, 1,000 megawatts of power, then I should be able to know that, okay, there's something I missed. There's something wrong here. So how do I go after them? So you now be able to trace who are consuming power, but they are not able to pay for it. Then you go after them. But when you sit at the comfort of your house, and then you think that you can just deploy personnel, you deploying personnel is also an increase in cost. Exactly. That becomes very inefficient. And so how long can you continue to be sending one person, go to this area, go to this area, no, you can't do that. So have a system that even if the person decides to bypass the system, his power goes off. When your power go off and you reconnect, you should be able to give them signals. These are things that, though it can be difficult, but when you put the system in place, it will be more efficient. So you'll be able to track your revenues. Now, the other one is the distribution losses. So you have a lot of transmission lines and transformers and Here and there, you said, oh, this transformer is stripping off, or this there is a wire. A little time when you hear that there's a rainfall or the weather has changed a little, then it goes off. All these things reduces the power that you are supposed to send to the consumer. And so when you're able to block these inefficiencies and you put in place systems that will be able to monitor it, your revenue will increase. Now, the other one got to do with the government agencies. And so anytime that ECG experiences a shortfall, government comes in handy through the Ministry of Finance. And so you have some of the government institutions that are supposed to pay ECG, but they don't do it because the government will tell them, I'm taking care of it. And these are the places that they don't even ensure power conservation. And so when they don't ensure power conservation, their consumption increases. And when it increases, it becomes a debt, or let me say an overhang on the part of government for them to pay. And most times the government will not have it immediately to pay. And so it becomes a pile up. And so recently, you saw that through the Ministry of Energy, they brought some institutions that are exempted from paying electricity bills. So whether it's the hospitals or the military or service areas, they are exempted. At first, it was just almost all institutions. And so the MMDAs, that is the municipal district assemblies and they used to incur a lot of debt, consume a lot of power, and then they expect the government to pay. But if you are also rendering services, so don't make use of IGF, you get IGF and co. So what can you use how can you use the IGF for? You should be able to pay some of those bills so that the burden doesn't come on the part of government, because already government is absorbing a very crucial part of the in terms of power generation, that is the buying of liquid fuels. If you take the thermal components, that's 71% of power generation. The government pays for the liquid fuel. That liquid fuel is not factored in the price build-up for the tariffs for electricity that we pay. And because it is not factored into it, we've continued to have legacy debts for the power sector. And so this time around, if you look at the PURC report, they've just brought a quarterly review that there has been some adjustment in electricity tariffs. Quite a period that people were expecting that there should be a reduction in electricity tariffs because they think that the economy is now picking up. Exchange rate has been a bit stabilized. Inflation is not on the upward. There are a lot of factors that are thinking that they are in the right direction. So at least there should be an announcement that there's a reduction in price of electricity. But over the years, we've not been paying the cost-reflective tariffs. And so there has been that political interferences because you and I, when it's getting to elections, the politician is interested in telling Ghanaians that, you know what, I've reduced the cost of electricity, water bills are down. Meanwhile, when you reduce it, it becomes a debt on the books of government. And at the end of the day, you come and tell Ghanaians that we are owing, and so you have to find a way and raise the money. No, that's not a good thing. Let Ghanaians know that they are paying for something, and that thing that they are paying for, they are getting the right delivery of service for it. When that happens, Ghanaians will always have the confidence in you. So if you want to increase it, they understand because they are getting service delivery.
Aside the political gimmick, as you said, where getting to elections, politicians will come and give promises and say that this is going to be free, and later it adds up to the debt stock. Aside the politicians, do you think that Ghanaians are really paying realistic tariff prices?
So we are not paying realistic tariffs because of the political interferences. PURC that is supposed to set these tariffs for us will tell you that the liquid cost of fuel that we are using to generate the thermal are not factored into it. The government decides to absorb it. Now, if the government absorbs it, and then of the day, the government tells you that I'm owing $3 billion in the power sector, $3 billion. How the government finance it? The government it's not like there's a free lunch. Yeah, when the government does something for you, it is a cost to government. Even subsidies become cost to government.
Right.
The government must find a way to raise that money.
Okay.
Where would the government find a way to raise the money from? Is either through taxes or some productions and co. And so when certain things, especially your extractive sector, you are doing raw material transfer like exports, then you are not getting real value for it. And so you have to raise the rest of the money through taxation.
Sure.
And that taxation is something that nobody wants to pay. Taxation is like paying tariffs.
Sure.
It's something that is very inconvenient for people. And so when you, the government, you come to tell Ghanaians that we are owing, and so I need to now impose taxes for you. So the taxes are either on the price builder for petrol or fuel or in another line item and co. Ghanaians will not be happy with you. And so anytime that you see the legacy debts and co, is because one, there's somebody that is inefficient or somebody is sleeping on his job on the part of ECG. We've had different boards, management and co. They've not been able to make profits and co. They'll come and tell that I've raised 1 billion Ghana cedis for a month. That 1 billion you are talking about, you are supposed to raise like 2.1 billion.
Right.
And you are raising 1 billion. And you want to compare that 1 billion to a previous period. No, that is very inaccurate. You get the point?
I get it.
Because there has been an increase in tariffs. And so you don't expect to raise 1 billion so that they collect for you. You have to check how much were you expected to collect and how much have you been able to retrieve or receive. Then you now look at the average of it. And so if I'm expecting 100% and you give me 60%, you're inefficient. What happens to the 40%? So the nominal value of that 60% might be higher than somebody's nominal value, but maybe at that particular point in time, when you look at the percentage, that person was doing around 80%.
Sure.
And so I cannot come and clap for you.
Sure.
Are you getting the point?
I get it.
And yeah, so that is one part of it. The inefficiency in terms of revenue generation is always something that cripples the power sector. When we pay the reflective tariffs, we will not have issues to do with DUMSO. Because when we talk about DUMSO, we currently have enough capacity to generate power for Ghanaians. The current capacity for Ghana, how we call the dependable capacity, is over 3,700 megawatts.
Okay.
The amount of power we need on daily basis at peak hours, which is around 10 p.m., is around 3,600 megawatts. And so if you have a dependable capacity that is over 4,800 megawatts on daily basis, what it means is that when you power all your thermal plants, when you power all your hydro, and you want to achieve a 90% efficiency or capacity utilization, and you bring your renewables on stream, then it means that everybody in Ghana must get power. Are you getting my point? But why are we not getting the power? Because the government doesn't have the money to be able to buy the liquid fuels to bring on board all the thermal plants. And so some people, when they don't have the money, some people have to experience DUMSO, that is a load shedding and co. And that is not something that Ghanaians are comfortable with. And so for now, if the government of the day will be truthful to Ghanaians and let Ghanaians have confidence in them that now we want to now reset the economy, we have to reset the power sector, pay the right reflective tariffs, and then they know that you are utilizing that money collected for the right purposes, Ghanaians will have confidence in you.
That's really going to be an interesting one. And I look forward to seeing which government will be able to do that. But just one on the ECG. Do you believe in the school of thoughts or the group of people that says that due to the inefficiencies of ECG, we should privatize it?
All right. So it is not total privatization because we are learning from past records. We've seen what happened with the PDS and co. And so even if you want to do anything of that sort, you must be transparent with Ghanaians. Let all the stakeholders have that open communication and transparency so that the right people who are fit for purpose would like to take advantage of it, or maybe take that opportunity and serve Ghanaian. But you don't have the situation where somebody who doesn't have the capacity, whether it's the technical capacity or the financial capacity, and then because they have the political powers backing them, then they just maneuver their way. And no, we don't want that situation. So what we are talking about is that ECG is a national asset.
Right.
You cannot leave it totally in the hands of a private sector. But what we are talking about is a private sector participation, especially in terms of revenue collection and billing, because that is the part that they feel a lot. The reason being that you have to go and take money from somebody because the person is consuming power, but that person supposedly is a big man in quotes. And so you and I do not have the muscles to go after the person. Are you getting it? So when you don't have the muscles to go after that person, how will you be able to retrieve that money? Meanwhile, the person is bypassing the system. You have a lot of big companies in Ghana who have bypassed the system. Recently, a whole real estate, nobody is using power. Like the power they are using is something that they bypass the system. But assuming they have the political backing or they think they have the financial muscle, so nobody can come after them, how will you achieve efficiency? But when you leave it in the hands of a private sector, as a private sector participation, in terms of billing, in terms of revenue collection, then they'll be able to monitor and ensure that when I give you this amount of power, I'm supposed to get that commensurable revenue that is associated with it. In that case, government is not blamed for it. And so if the private sector is able to do it well and even take a commission for it, you government, you know that somebody is giving you service delivery better than what you would have done in your own capacity. Are you getting it? And so when that happens, what happens is the sustainability of the power sector that we are all looking out for. And so it's not total privatization of ECG, but we expect that there should be that private sector participation in terms of billing, in terms of revenue collection.
Let's do a little bit on the petroleum. You see, some years back, Ghana discovered oil, as we all know, and the ordinary person would think that because we've discovered oil, we should benefit from it in terms of pricing, in terms of accessibility, and all that. In your earlier submission, you made reference to the fact that because of a period where Ghana was not, economy wasn't so stable, you had other companies leaving, like Tulu and the rest, right? Talo and the rest, they left. We are hoping that they will come back. And because of that, production is on the decline. I know. The question I want to find out from you is that ever since we discovered oil in commercial quantities, has it benefited the consumer, the ordinary Ghanaian, the citizens? And in what way has it benefited us?
All right. So I'll look at it from this angle. In the nutshell, because that's the natural resources, definitely we've gotten some benefit from it in one way or the other. Whether in terms of revenue, or let me say exports of, let me say this crude products, we've gotten some benefit from it. But when you ask yourself, what is the percentage, what is the take of government in it? Right. And that is always the question. Because that sector is a very capital intensive sector. And so you need sometimes on a minimum $100 million, sometimes $200 million to be able to just go and dig a well. And that well you can finish, and at the end of the day, you get an empty well. And so it's a very risky area. But you know, anybody who takes risk is the one that benefits the most. If you're able to take the risk and then the benefits are coming, you enjoy better than any other thing. And so it's that risk sharing that is always a problem on the part of government. And so we do not have the financial muscles to be able to go into it. The private sector takes all the risk, go into it, and then when they discover, they now bring the terms and conditions to you. Even though you own it, but what you need to go into it is the capital. If you don't have the capital, you'll not be able to exploit. You'll not be able to discover. You'll not be able to produce. And so what we should have been learning as it stands right now through the GMPC is whether we've been able to make a lot of savings where GMPC on its own unilaterally can be able to go into this kind of explorations without the international partners. If we have that capacity in terms of the mapping, in terms of the technical know-how, in terms of the financial capacity, then we should be able to explore that. But so far as we don't have that total capacity, both financial, both technical, and other things, then it will always be a problem for us. For the private companies, they have that capacity. That is something they've been doing. They take risk and then they get the profit out of it. And so they have a lot of capital that they can venture into some risky areas. And so what we can do is to come maybe for a better terms and references, conditions. And so what should be Ghana's maybe say participation, what should be our interest, what should be our percentage in it. Let me give you a classical example. Over the years, we've been let me say gold production.
Right.
But this time around, you've seen that the government of Ghana through the gold board has taken full control over it. That is an innovative means. And so you are taking control of a sector that is predominantly foreigners who have now come into it. And so when you do that, you put in place measures to be able to control the system so that the maximum benefit comes to Ghana. You get the point? And so if the government of Ghana wants to also control the upstream in terms of oil production, discovery of new wells and other things, they should have the right capacity, the right conversation, and invite local participants and co. Not foreigners who will come and then set up company and put a Ghanaian local person there, and at the end of the day, they just take back their profits and co. No. If you can have an honest conversation to it, and we have that financial muscle, it should be risk. But you know what? Because of the confidence that we do not have, sometimes you and I, you can be there. You have a genuine cost to go and explore oil. And maybe you've invested, say, $100 million. If at the end of the day, you meet an empty well, somebody tell you that you are corrupt. You've not been, you are not efficient enough. You're not prudent with it. And so you can be prosecuted for it. So somebody is scared that why should I divert about $100 million into that area if I don't get it? What will Ghanaians say? They'll say that, oh, maybe I've diverted the money into family and friends and I've used it for private business and everything. But when we don't have people who have the integrity, and then they can assure Ghanaians that this thing that I'm doing is with utmost good faith, that I want to do it for the benefit of Ghanaians, Ghanaians will not have that trust because at the end of the day, it's very risky. You can meet an empty well, and how many people will understand that this empty well that you met is for a genuine cause, or you were trying your best for it, but just that you were not fortunate enough to get it. How many people will have you with that conversation? And so the only thing that we have now is through the GMPC. And the GMPC alone do not have that capacity in terms of finance and other things to just go into it. They can do it with the Explo account and other things. But sometimes if it's participation, they can do it. But that participation do not help us because our percentage level is very low. And that is why even though on the international market, prices of crude or petroleum products will go up, we don't really benefit because our percentage is low, even though we are also exporting oil. People will tell you, oh, Ghana is producing oil in larger commercial quantities, but what really have been the significant benefit of it? For the past, let me say, 12 years, 13 years that we've been exploring producing oil in larger quantities, we've gotten over $10 billion. But if you want to go into it, would there be some significant monumental things that you can pinpoint to that, okay, from this oil production, this and this we can point to? Yes, and so you continue to hear of maybe oil money divested into science, technology, scholarships and co. That is good. But sometimes when you also invest it into other educational facilities that are not in line with, say, STEM, then it means that you are using the money for not a good purpose. Sometimes you are looking at capital projects because capital projects will be able to pay back on its own. And so if you have used the oil revenue to build, say, Terminal 3 or another big refinery in Ghana, the only refinery that we've gotten so far is a thermal refinery from Kwame Nkrumah's time. So assuming maybe we'll be able to invest about $100 million into a new refinery with a capacity of, say, 120,000 barrels per day and other things, at least that is something that future generations can pinpoint to. But as it stands now, we don't have something much significant, monumental, that we can pinpoint to. It has just been consumptions and then the little things when it comes to education. Sometimes you hear that they diversify, maybe they have invested into astroturfs, especially. What will astroturf do to oil production? Are you getting it? And so there are some significant things that we expect. And not that you should not invest into corporate social responsibilities. You are supposed to do it. But know that this corporate social responsibility you are doing, is it commensurable in your line of activities that future generations can pinpoint to that? At least our fathers, our mothers, our generation past got oil, but these were the benefits that we've gotten from it. We're not getting that. And so we should have an honest conversation and then also take a visionary leader like in terms of president, to be able to say that, okay, I want to now invest or focus on oil production. We used to have only one.
Yeah.
And then later it went to 10 Sankofa Junior Field. Is another point.
That's right.
For the past 8 years, there has been no oil exploration. Like if I say new wells, there's none of those sorts. And so it means that the past government have really not invested into any discovery of oil again. So the three ones that we've been depending on is what we are still depending on. And that production of it has even declined. It has declined so much so that you cannot, if you want to compare it to say what we used to get around 2016, 2017, it has declined about 30%, 40%. It is not helping our economy. It will not help our budget. And so if the government of the day, the current government, decides to make a conscious effort to invest into oil production, leading to the discovery of other wells, then it means that we can now get an increase in oil production, and that will increase our revenue. When we get an increase in revenue, we can use it to now support our budget, whether it is for capital projects or whether it is for recurrent, then that is where we get the benefit. And so there should be that effort, conscious effort, that we have to increase our oil production. The current capacity, let's increase it whilst we add other wells to it.
The issue of Tor, over the past period, there has been this argument of, and I have consistently been on it. Prior to we discovering oil, Nkrumah was so great in thinking into the future, gave us Tema Oil Refinery. Today we have oil in commercial quantities. Tema Oil Refinery seems not to be working. What's the problem with Tema Oil Refinery? Do you have an idea?
All right. So for the, let me speak about what we've seen from 2016, 2017 coming. And so we used to refine oil as at 2016.
Right.
But from 2017 till now, we've not seen the full optimization of the oil refinery.
If you say full optimization, are you making reference to us not having it at all, or it is operating but not into full capacity?
Not only full capacity, it has been down. If you look at the
So it's
8
been
years
declining.
period, declining. Sometimes we don't even refine a whole year. We don't even refine anything. Sometimes 2 years, sometimes 3 years. Look at an entity like the oil refinery, where for the past 8 years you've had 8 different managing directors, or let me say CEOs. And so there will be that coherence of vision. You will not have it. That coherence of vision that you expect, that one leader will pass on to the
You
other.
mean for the past 8 years, we've had an average of 8 CEOs?
Yes,
So
2024. So
an average of 1 CEO per year.
sometimes some even last just 2 months.
Okay.
Are you getting it? So if a CEO is lasting for 2 months, what can the person bring to bear? The person will not be able to do anything. Now it's because of that political interferences. That is why you continue to have change in CEOs every now and there. And so the financial capacity is not there. You are not refining your system. The RFCC and Co are all down. CDU are all down. And so you cannot refine anything. Now, when you don't have the financial muscles, okay, to be able to bring in the crude and refine them, that becomes a debt to you. Now, your tank farms that you are supposed to use for it, you're only renting out your tank farms and you're getting some fees for it. But your real priority, which is in terms of oil refining, you are not able to refine anything. And so now Tor has just been there like an idle capacity. It's just the name that is there. Recently, the current MD, Mr. Edmond Combat, addressed when they met Parliamentary Select Committee. They now put it in to the public that from this year, October, they are going to start refining petroleum products. And so it takes somebody who want to let the place work. And so it means that one, they already have debts on their books over $500 million debt on their books. Somebody who is not operating, you're having debt on your books. How will you even survive? You get the point. Secondly, you are supposed to pay your staffs. You are supposed to do a whole lot of other things. The operational inefficiencies is too much, and they don't have the right financial capital injections. And so, if the oil refinery that is as it is get a public, or let me say a private partnership, that political interferences will reduce. The right capital injections will come to bear, and then the forward march of the oil refinery can come to place. Now we are competing Dangote. The oil refinery have a capacity of 40,000 barrels per day.
Right.
Okay. They can even increase to 80,000 barrels per day.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, the whole Ghana, how much is our consumption on daily basis? It's just over 120,000. So if Tamale refinery is even able to operate at full capacity at 80,000 barrels, that is almost like 70% of our national consumption. And so this thing that we are talking about, Iran, Israel, and other things, we will probably not be affected. When we take crude from the 10 Sankofa Jinyami field, we'll be able to refine them in Ghana. It also now helps protect the currency, our exchange rate. And so we don't need the hard currency, that is the dollar, to be able to import refined petroleum products here. We are getting it from Tamale refinery. Link your pipes and co, and then the various filling stations will get it. When that happens, there is no much pressure on the city. So the city now continues to appreciate. But anytime we need about $400 million on monthly basis to go and import refined petroleum products, that puts pressure on your currency. And so this is the issue.
Yeah.
Anytime that Tamale refinery begins to work, it will inure to the benefit of Ghanaians, because one, you get revenue, people will get jobs to do, and then that local energy security,
Right.
where we do not need to depend on foreign, let me say, like external factors, where we can take control of internal factors, will come to place, and then it will help Ghanaians. I look forward to that October, where we'll be able to refine petroleum products in Ghana using the Tamale refinery. And not just that, there should be that futuristic investment where we can have a conversation. How do we expand Tamale refinery to say 150,000 barrels per day, so that we can also serve those in the sub-region? When we serve those in the sub-region, they will need our city to be able to import to their place. So when we are exporting to them, our city now becomes strengthened. Is another point. We now get a lot of people getting jobs, and so the economy now becomes very favorable. People get jobs to do, government get revenue, government get taxes and co. And so things pick up. But when we don't have that honest conversation, very soon everybody will just be diverting to Dangote. And when it happens, then we will now be lacking behind.
The issue of Tama Oil Refinery beginning to operate, hopefully in October. For now, we can only hope that it works. Because if for the past 8 years or so, we've not been able to have it operationalized, I'm sure it will be a bit difficult to convince fully that this October is going to happen. But we are hoping that it works out. Okay, go on. Yeah.
So what I wanted to say is that we are hoping that it works out, but looking at the measures that the current MD and his team are putting in place is to engage those in the financial sector, because one major issue affecting Tamale refinery is access to capital, the finance part of it. And so when when they don't have that capital injections into it, then it affects their operations. And so if they're having an honest discussion with these financial sector players, where they'll be able to advance capital to them, and then they have the confidence that this money that we are advancing to you will be utilized for the right purpose, to bring back your maintenance that you've not been doing, to bring the CDU to make the CDU operationalized, and then the RFCC, then it means that there'll be a good thing. But when there's no capital injection, with that, let me say, people exhibiting technical know-how, people exhibiting efficiency, so that they'll be able to bring their knowledge to bear, then we will continue to be singing the same story. But I just hope that you will have that turnaround so that Ghanaians will get the maximum.
The question
benefits.
I was asking is, whilst we hope that TOR, that's Tema Oil Refinery, starts activating its work, we currently depend largely on oil from external sources. And you know, one of the places where the whole world depends so much on has to do with the Middle East, because they produce. Today, as we speak, there's an Iran-Israel war taking place there. Does it have any link to the state of Ghana's petroleum sector?
All right. So thanks once again. And so it has a direct effect. Direct effect because when you take our price buildup for fuel, there are three major factors that we take into consideration. The first one is the international prices. So on the international front, what happens is because one, we are importing refined petroleum products. Now, importing those refined petroleum products, we do not have control over them. And so the forces of demand and supply at play at that international level is what we just consume. So we become always like price takers. So what they pass on to us is what we just take. Right. So in the international price is something that directly affects the price buildup for fuel at the pumps here. The second one is the exchange rate. And so when you take our CD, so for every pricing window, how stabilize our currency, and so we have 2 pricing windows per month. So the first 2 weeks and then the last 2 weeks. And so when you take the exchange rate, has it been stabilized? Has it appreciated? Has it depreciated? When it depreciates, then it means that when you are going to import the refined product, you need more CDs to be able to get the same dollar. And so the business person is not a Father Christmas. When he has to now incur depreciation loss, you add it to the price build up at the various pumps for you. But anytime that the CD appreciates, for them to go and bring the refined petroleum products, it means that Ghanaian stands to benefit because the CD is what appreciating. And so the exchange rate plays another crucial role. The third one is the taxes and margins. The other ones are the insurance and other things, they come to play, but the taxes and margins are another crucial point in it. And so when you hear about it, they said we're going to add a 1 CD special petroleum levy or something,
right.
but that has been suspended. And so if that had come to play, then it means that for the next pricing window, our fuel price would have increased by 1 CD. And so that means that there's a direct correlation between it. Now, depending on the international factor, because we do not have control over it, the other 2 that I made mention of, which is the exchange rate and the taxes and margin, that is all we have control over. And so if you put our economy in good check, that means that the CD can appreciate, like what we've been experiencing from January, February, thereabout. The CD has been appreciating. And so that is internal measures that we are putting in place. The other one is the taxes and margins. Tomorrow, the government or the day can just wake up and say that, okay, for this line item in the price build-up, I'm canceling it. Or for this this maybe levy, I am reducing the percentage or the amount that we pay per liter. I'm going to reduce it. It will translate or reflect at the various pumps. But right now, what is happening on the Middle East is that considering Israel and then Iran war, it's like you want to take goods from Ghana to say Cote d'Ivoire, but you have to use the route through Ghana. Now, when using the route through Ghana, and Ghana is encountering any challenge in terms of war, in terms of other things, Ghana can say that, okay, for now, I am blocking it. I cannot, I don't feel safe. So for the meantime, let me now put in place measures to be able to curtail movement. Okay, when that happens, it means that those who will be able to import things through Ghana to Cote d'Ivoire will be affected. So the same thing is what is happening in Iran right now. So that Strait of Hormuz is where a lot of oil passes. The quantity of oil that passes to that place on daily basis is about 20% of the international demand. And so if Iran decides to say that for these 20%, that is 20 million barrels of
that's huge.
Product. Yeah, huge, very significant. And so if Iran decides to say that for today, because of what I'm experiencing, because of the war, I cannot allow the movement of these products, and so I'm going to shut it. It means that on daily basis, we are going to get a short change of 20 million barrels of petroleum products coming onto the international market. When that happens, it means that supply is on the decrease.
Right.
Now, the little economics for other people to know is that the forces of demand and supply comes to play. So when supply is reduced and then you have demand remaining constant, that means that there is likely to be that shortage. That shortage is what spikes the prices. And so you hear that, oh, for these war, prices have gone up. And so it's now trading as almost $80 per barrel and other things. It's because there's that reduction in supply. When that reduction in supply comes to play, because prices have gone up, and then we import the refined product, it has a direct correlation to what happens to us. And so for this first pricing window of July, likely prices will go up. Now, price will go up for the war. It was not able to sustain for a longer period of time. Even now on the international market, prices have started coming down by 6%, 7% thereabout. And so that is good news for us. But the producer, or let me say the one who is going to import that product, or is somebody who also got at a higher price. So they are likely to pass on the price to Ghanaians. But the good news for Ghanaians is that for this pricing window, the currency, which is the dollar, or let me say the CD to the dollar, has been stabilized. And so the impact that would have felt at the pumps because of an increase in international prices, will not feel that magnitude at the various pumps because the CD has been stabilized. The second part is that there has been that suspension of the one Ghana CD that we are going to collect. And so for that suspension and then for the currency's stabilization, what is happening on the international market, even though it will have an impact, the impact will not be as significant as we are supposed to experience because the cedi has been stabilized. On the international market, to the world more or less has been a ceasefire. So what people were predicting that it could have been trading at $100 per barrel has now come to almost 70, 75. We are hoping that it gets to 65 or 60. When that happens, then it means that is prior to the war. Prices have now come back to what we used to experience prior to the war. And if you don't take care, we can be buying fuel at the various pumps below maybe 10.5, 10.8. Now people are even selling at 10.9.
Yeah.
Others are selling at 11, and some people are 11.5. We hope that the currency continues to be stabilized or appreciates the more, and then the taxes and margins, especially this suspension of the one levy, even if anything, should come at a time that the conditions are more favorable. So on the international market, fuel should be trading at $60 per barrel.
Yeah.
And then the city should be able to appreciate. In that case, if you even bring the introduction of that one Ghana cedis, Ghanaians will not really feel the impact at the various pumps. But when the factors are not in the right direction, and you bring that one Ghana cedi in position, Ghanaians will cry. And when they cry, it means that price of goods and services will go up, because fuel prices in Ghana has a direct correlation to price of goods and services. So anytime prices of petroleum products goes up, because we use for transportation, people use for generator, people use for a whole lot of other things. When it goes up, then goods and services prices are also likely to increase. And so if government of the day, you want to control inflation, then look at your fuel prices. When you're able to contain the fuel prices, then it means that at the various goods and services that are being rendered, prices can be stabilized, or even there can be that inflation rate reduction. And that will be good things for Ghanaians.
So what it means, and for me, I'm beginning to get some hope here, is the fact that looking at the elements that determines the prices, we have the international factors, we have the currency stabilization, then we have the taxes and the margins. From all indications, this past month into the 6th month, our currency seems to be stabilized. It is doing fairly well. In terms of taxes and margins, at least there was one tax that was introduced, but it has been suspended. So the only factor here has to do with the international factor. In this case, the Iran-Israel war, right? Now, with the Israel and Iran war, what you are saying is that even though the next window, when it is open, there might be some increments. The increments may not be so significant just because of the other factors, which has to do with the currency stabilization, right?
Yeah.
And so if that is the case, it simply means that the more we stabilize our currency, and in this case, even if Tor was working, it would have been extremely better.
Exactly.
You know, I am hoping that we'll have Tor operating as, has been indicated to us that by October, is that what you said?
Yeah, by October
we'll have Tor in I won't say full capacity, but
yeah,
at least
they'll start at least even anything from 20 to 40,000 barrels per day. They should be able to refine that capacity before expanding to their total capacity.
And Ghana's demand is what?
It's around 120,000 barrels.
120,000 a day.
Per day.
120,000 a day. And they'll be able to do about 40 a day. Does it mean that as we speak now, the 120,000, they are all coming from outside the country?
Yes, that is why we need monthly $400 billion to be able to bring refined petroleum products to Ghana. $400 million. So if you have the capacity to even refine, say, 150,000 barrels per day, what it means is that this $400 million, you don't need dollars for it. You will just get it here. And so there wouldn't be any pressure on your city for your city to depreciate and go every day. We're talking about city depreciation. No. And so at first, Bank of Ghana used to auction dollars for the BDCs to be able to bring the products to Ghana. They used to get just $100 million, sometimes $150 million. The rest of it, they have to go and get it at the black market. And the black market, the rates there are very high. So when they also get it, your fuel doesn't have a substitute.
But that is interesting. See, I'm beginning to appreciate the importance of Tor.
Okay.
That Tor is so important in this whole chain that if we're able to put Tor, at its right place, a lot of benefit. We are going to get a lot of benefits as a country.
Yes. Because, our leaders anticipated that there could be external factors
Right.
that we do not have control over. And so everybody, what do? You build buffers when you have the means, not when you are in crisis. And so at every point in time, the Temari refinery becomes a buffer to Ghanaians so that we can be able to solve our internal problems. The BOST, which is the Bulk Oil Storage Transportation Limited, has another component of its duties, or let me say, it's what is expected of them. One of it is that they should be the strategic reserve for the government.
Yeah.
And so, assuming BOST has a capacity to be able to store enough petroleum product for a period, like say 3 months, because you cannot store for a longer period. Otherwise, the quality of the fuel will reduce.
That's right.
And so, you should be able to store for a period that you can replenish it, and then to be able to like have that recycling in the system. If BOST has a capacity like say 3 months storage of fuel, okay,
Yeah.
what is happening on the international market or on the international scene, basically we don't care, because you have enough reserves. Definitely, there is no one on the international market that will last beyond 1 month or 2 months. Definitely, even the Iran this thing, within just 3 days, 4 days, there's been a ceasefire.
Sure.
Because if you take that Strait of Hormuz, it is an international route for fuel trading. Okay, and so Iran alone cannot be joined to it that have closed it and have that unilateral right. You can do it temporarily, but for permanently, you need to seek the consent of a lot of United Nations organizations, because United Nations Organization of Law of the Sea enjoins a lot of countries to be able to trade fuel through that particular part. And so whatever thing that happens on international markets or international scene might not be more than a month or two. And so when we have our internal measures in place, whether it is the Temari refinery, whether it is the BOST capacity, that is the strategic reserves, then it means that Ghanaians have the local capacity to be able to withstand any external shock, should there even be any. But as it stands right now, because the Temari refinery is not working, the only shock that we have is the BOST, which is just a government entity. But for MPA, they came out and said that, okay, we have enough capacity to ensure that we have a 2 months full capacity. And so even if the war were to go beyond, say, a month, 2 months and go, we have some internal capacity because we have some reserves there. But we could have enough that we could even now be trading for those who are in our neighbors around, whether it is Togo, Cote d'Ivoire, Burkina Faso, we could be trading with them because we have enough capacity. And so Ghanaians are capable of solving our own problem, not necessarily depending on external factors, especially when we put our measures in place.
My very last question. What is Ghana's current reserve capacity?
Ghana's current reserve capacity for BOST, it's not even up to a month.
It's not even up to
it's not up to a month. And so if it's not up to a month, that is quite a worry. But because the other thing is that governments will tell the government has not really given them money to ensure reserves. Because BOST engages in trading. If they don't engage in trading, they will not be able to compete. They will not be able to take care of a lot of other things. And so one thing is that BOST engages in trading. That trading is what helps them to survive. And so when they trade, there should be that balance of trade and then ensuring that reserve capacity that is also required of them. And because what Ghanaians are more interested in is that when there are external shocks, Ghanaians should be assured that, okay, there's some capacity of BOST that can be brought onto the market. So when those ones are brought onto the market, even if there's some external spikes in prices, say $100 per barrel, so Ghanaians are supposed to buy for like say 17 cedis per liter, BOST can say that, you know what, I have some reserves already there. Those reserves, I can trade them at say 11 Ghana cedis. So I'm bringing those ones onto the market for Ghanaians to enjoy. That is what Ghanaians would have been more happy with. But now they are trying to restructure things so that BOST will be more efficient and live to that capacity. And then we hope that the new management that has taken over will ensure that it's expected of them.
In less than 30 seconds, your final words.
And so my final words is that the energy sector is very crucial to the economy of Ghana. There's no economy in the world that can survive without the energy sector. Find a way to be able to ensure that discipline, transparency, and efficiency, both the power sector, both the petroleum sector, and then the other subsectors. Ensure that they are working. When they are working, it will help revive the economy. Investors will have confidence in the economy that when they bring their money, they will not come and experience doomsday. Because the era of doomsday has been very painful. People losing jobs, people losing lives and livelihood, businesses were collapsing and co. We don't want to experience anything of that sort. And so the current administrators of Ghana should assure Ghanaians and that when we pay the right reflective tariffs, and then they also put the efficiencies in place, Ghanaians will continue to enjoy 24-hour power. And
Very
that will
well.
be a good thing for Ghanaians.
Very well. Emmanuel, thank you so much. I've really enjoyed this conversation. Viewers, all too soon, this is where time will allow us. I believe strongly that you've also enjoyed this conversation, as you've always been doing on this platform, Politics and Beyond. The energy sector is really an interesting sector, very, very important sector. And for me, what I need to see most is Tema Oil Refinery bouncing back and operating to full capacity very soon. That is very, very important, because looking at what we have, appreciated this evening, if indeed Tema Oil Refinery was to operate as expected, I believe we would have had some good enjoyment as far as the petroleum and the energy sector as a whole is concerned. The other one that we must also have a look at is the power sector, which has to do with the generation, the transmission, and the distribution. It is so clear that our difficulty has to do with the distribution sector, and that has to do with the ECG's ability to bill and to collect revenue. This has been the bane. This has been the problem that ECG has been confronted with. And so gradually and every now and then, it looks like Ghana is accumulating unnecessary debts. And we'll get to the peak. We'll get to a stage where we will now have to collapse. And that is where we don't want to get to. And so ECG is also encouraged to start thinking outside the box. Possibly, let's have some level of transparency and see if we can have some private, partnership, not selling ECG, but partnership, where the private sector will find a way of collecting revenue, assist in the billing, whilst ECG does its distribution, which is, the basic duty that is expected of ECG. All too soon, as I indicated, this is where time will allow us. I'm still your host, Emmanuel Wilson Jr., the Chief Crusader against corruption here in Ghana. So we meet again next week, same time on your platform TV XYZ, where I'll bring to you Politics and Beyond next week. All I can say for now is good night.